How's it going, YouTube? Oxy here, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be reviewing Barbarian, recent horror movie that's come out, and I gotta say, I really liked it. Really good, great message too behind it, and yeah, don't want to be too long, just here. If I will touch on some spoilers, so honest opinion, I really like it. Go see it. I think you should see it, before a review like this. So, go see it, come back. With that being said, really great. So the film starts off, right? We're following our main character, Tess, played by Georgina Campbell. And, she's booked an Airbnb. She's in town for an interview. She's booked one, only to find out that there's already an occupant there, played by Bill Skarsgård, Keith. Right? Pennywise to a lot of you newer horror fans now. But yeah, so there's that problem of we both have booked this. What do we do? And of course she's cautious, right? She's like, oh, I don't trust this guy. I don't think anyone would. But the movie does a good job of playing with your expectations where you're like, oh, so he's the barbarian, right? Keith is going to be the bad guy. But that's not the case at all. Of course, throughout the film, you, in the beginning, right, the first act is really just establishing Keith and Tess and, getting to know each other and that sort of thing. And, the movie does a really good job of, there'll be long, big, wide shots, right, of them just talking. And it shows the background, and, in horror fashion, you're expecting, oh, there's going to be something there, right? The camera cuts away to Keith, then back to Tess, and you're like, oh, something's going to jump out. No. It, has really good tension or building that suspense where you're like, something's going to happen. But for a while, it doesn't, Only until Tess goes down to the basement. And again, the movie just does that really good. Where she finds she gets locked in, right? Locked in the basement. She finds a hidden door, hidden passageway, and it's to the whole house and everything. Only to find a room with a camera. And so understandably, you would think, oh, Keith is the psycho, right? He's gonna be the one that's gonna keep her down there. He's the barbarian. But no. Keith turns out to be a good guy, and he goes down exploring. They go down there, and that's where we're introduced to who I will call Baby. The movie never really gives her a name, but it's essentially a big, disfigured woman, right? A monster, you could say. If you've seen the recent Blair Witch, the 2016 one, she looks like that monster there, really long limbs. But yeah, where Baby kills Keith, and, captures Tess, and then we're introduced to AJ, played by Justin Long, who, man, when I saw him, I was like, I know that guy. And then going back now, he was in Jeepers Creepers, Derry. So I was like, oh, shit, that's awesome. No, Justin's a really great actor. He's awesome. I know him more for comedy, but he has that ability, he can just as easily bounce back into horror and that sort of thing. But yeah, Justin Long plays AJ, who's a guy from some type of show or something, he's filming a pilot, and he's accused of sexual assault. And the issue there is that again, he seems like a really nice guy, but he's been accused, and he's like, oh, how could this happen? And we find out that he owns the house, he owns the house that they were renting, both Keith and Tess. So then you're like, okay, he's the crazy guy. But no, come to find out so he goes to investigate, goes down the tunnel. But surprisingly, he's a lot more cool about it, And that's where the film's message really kind of comes through, in the sense of what women may go through. How Tess was very, Keith was honestly the nicest guy ever. He's even hey, I waited for you to get out the shower so you could see me open this wine bottle. I'm not trying to drug you, nothing. I'm just very open, very honest. And you know how Tess is very like careful and like, yo, I don't trust this like a normal human would. That's what I can say is that like, oh, like, you know, people actually think in the movie, unlike most horror movies where they're dumb. AJ for some reason is just very like, oh, cool, more square footage to my property because he needs money for the lawsuit. But then we find out that he did basically sexually assault this unseen woman. We never see her in the movie. And yeah, and it just goes to show that like I guess you can think of the house almost like a metaphor for like it's yeah, because the movie has the whole thing just about like that, like what women go through, you know, similar to Men, the movie that came out this year. But I think this one has a better job of doing it because then later on we're introduced by Frank, Richard, played by Richard Brake, who is the Barbarian, you know. And essentially Richard owned the house back in the day, but he's like, he abducts and rapes women, right? Like he takes pleasure in it. And there's a great scene that really drives it home where AJ, again, so Tess is alive because AJ gets captured by the baby monster, right? And they're in a cage together, and they're like, we have to get out of here. There's a great scene where Tess is able to run out, but she's going to go back to help him, right? To help AJ. But then AJ ends up, he's in the tunnels, and he ends up at a room that there's like a bell to it, but the baby is scared of it. Like she backs away. And so we're, as the audience, you're expecting some big monster or something. Like a big creature, right? Something. But no, it's literally just the character Frank, right? Who was the original owner of the house, who never left. It's him, like old, withered, right? Like this is probably like 100 or something. And yeah, he just sleeps down there. And that's where AJ finds out that like, oh, this guy's like, you know, there's videotapes, he watches them. And of course, it's implied that, yeah, it's like the recordings. Like, it was his room, the one in the beginning with the dirty bed and the camera. That's where he would keep his victims, like women. Like, there's a scene where he's faking to be like a plumber. Or that's like a maintenance worker. He goes to a woman's house, which we do see her dress, meaning she was one of the victims. Turns on the faucet, unlocks the bathroom window, showing us that like that's how he got in the house and eventually kidnaps her. And yeah, so that guy ends up killing himself. You know, they get out, and again, so we found out that AJ did basically sexually assault this woman. And I guess it's like the different approaches is almost like how the movie is saying, you know, in certain cases, like women are more cautious and that sort of thing, but things can happen. Whereas as him, the guy, like, think, like, you see a black hallway, you're not going in, right? That's like a red flag. It's like, no, don't go in. But he does so, like, with, you know, he's like, hey, this is my house. Kind of like how a guy can be like, this is my girlfriend. I can do what I want. Yeah. So, again, there's really good, like, parallels there to, like, a social commentary, right? On that of, like, consent and that sort of thing. And the movie ends, of course, AJ gets what he deserves. Tess lives, Mercy kills baby. But it's really nice, as in, like, just showing how, you know, people could think things are okay or interpret them as like, hey, I'm not a bad person. Like, you know, I didn't mean no harm. But it's like, no, like, it's pretty bad. I know, sorry if I'm not the most clear. It's hard to put into words, but if you see the movie, just knowing that there are those, like, themes or, like, those, like, going on, I think you'll appreciate it more. At least I did, you know, discussing, like, with, I saw the movie with my girlfriend, so getting her perspective and that sort of thing really helped me to be like, whoa, like, you know, this is actually really good, or, like, seeing these parallels and that sort of thing. But if I had to give it a rating, I'd say Barbarian is, like, a solid, like, 8.5, 9 even. Really great film. Now, look, yeah, if you're going to be like, but is it scary, though? Again, it builds good tension, but admittedly, no, it's not like, oh my god, like screaming, but it has a good message, and yeah, it's enjoyable. I think it still does a good job playing with the suspense and that sort of thing, like finding out the things. It's like, whoa, like it's really good. It reminded me of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even, of the sense of like the horror comes in like the thought of like, think out there anywhere in the world, right? In your suburb could literally be a house where something like this is going on. Now, maybe not a mutated monster lady, but the idea that, everyday people that we see, you never know who's really a bad person out there. But yeah, guys, that's it. Barbarian. Go see it. It's really good. I think you'll enjoy it. I really liked it, and, I'd see it again. But with that, guys, that's going to be the video. Hope you enjoy. If you like this type of content, I make new videos every Tuesday and Saturday. So please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good jazz. And as always, everyone, I've been your host, Oxy. Take care.